Yeah, it's very simple. The only reason real estate has any value, the only reason gold has any value, the only reason the stock market has any value, the only reason I collect watches, the only reason watches have any value is because of the scarcity attached to them. So when you buy a property, you are only buying a property because you believe that other people will want to buy that property and there won't be enough of them in the future. So therefore, the price will go up. So really, in essence, you're not buying the property for the property's sake. You're not buying it just for the utility of the house, because that would just be you live in it and that's the end of that. You're buying it because there's the need that other people have for that house, and you're going to offer them different ways to gain leverage on that position. So one way to gain leverage on a house is by renting it, right? So you don't have to buy the whole thing. You're in essence gaining leverage on it by renting it. You were just living in that house, but you're now renting it instead of having to purchase it. And as a buyer of a house, you are in essence buying that house because there's not enough and most people can't buy it. So therefore, you're going to buy it and rent it out to them and profit off of the leverage that you can provide someone. So that once you understand that any asset, anything that goes up in quote unquote price, the only reason it's going up is because of scarcity, right? Once you understand that, your question should be, well, which battery do I put my money into? Because if everything is just a battery gauging scarcity, now you can assess real estate like a battery gauging scarcity. You can say, okay, there's scarcity involved. There's only a certain amount of houses being printed on a 10-year basis. You can then have a look at, okay, what are the likelihood of a government issuing more permits to print more houses? And you can have a look at credit cycles. You can have a look at what's the availability of the debt, et cetera, et cetera. You can gauge the quality of that battery through the demand and supply levers that are based on that asset. Same thing with the stock market, same thing with gold. And then you realize you get to Bitcoin, you go, wait a second, I can't move the supply lever. Whereas with real estate, if a government wants to fuck around with the supply lever of the asset, they can just issue more permits to build more, to print more properties, right? They can issue tax incentives, right? If they want to increase demand, they can lower interest rates. They can do a lot. They can do tax incentives on the purchasing side, like a 1031 exchange in the US. There's a lot of things that governments can do with both levers on the asset, whereas Bitcoin is the only asset humanity has ever known where the supply lever is completely fixed. The only thing that can be moved and adjusted is the demand lever. And that is very unique. It's never ever been seen before. And that's why, once you understand that scarcity is the most important thing, then you can assess every single asset and go, okay, maybe I need an allocation to the asset where nobody can mess with its supply.
Yep, that's a great way to put it. That as long as an asset has demand, then scarcity is the big determining factor of how valuable it's going to be, you know. And I think a lot of people when they hear your message or my message, they think that we're pessimists, right? They think that, oh, they only want Bitcoin to go up because hyperinflation and see societal collapse or whatever. It's like, oh, these Bitcoiners are pessimists. And building off what you just said, I think that point you just made shows that we're actually the optimists, right? Because if you're investing in gold, if you're investing in real estate, if you're investing in these things, you frankly have a certain you inherently have to have a certain pessimistic attitude. If you're all in on housing, it's you profit basically on the thesis that humanity builds less and less housing per capita. You know, the less housing we build for people, the less affordable housing there is for people, the more you make. And obviously, not every landlord, I'm saying, wants that explicitly, but when you back it up to that first principles, that's basically what you're betting on, you know, or likewise gold, or likewise watches, anything else. Inherently, you're kind of betting on that scarcity. It's what, you know, when Jeff Booth talks about infinite money and finite assets, or infinite assets and finite money, this is that kind of methodology. And so saying everything's going to crash against Bitcoin, everything's going to zero against Bitcoin is this like optimistic worldview that hopefully everything only becomes more abundant in the future. And therefore, to your point, with less and less scarcity, prices come down. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm even more optimistic than that. I think you can get to a $5 million Bitcoin without anything in the world as it is today currently changing. Because if you think about it, Bank of America's done this research where they looked at the dollar in multiple on the market, and for every basically at the peak of the last market, for every dollar that was going into Bitcoin, the market cap was going up by $118. That's very unique for Bitcoin. What that means is in terms of a market multiple, you call it, that's what you call it. It's a 1 to 118 market multiple. So if we want to get Bitcoin to $100 trillion market, Bank of America is coming out there and saying that it's only going to take $1 trillion and a supply squeeze. Right. And real estate is
That's
worth
crazy.
$330 trillion. Right. Gold is worth $12 trillion. The stock market in the US is worth $50 trillion. The bond market is worth $120 trillion. So anyone tells me that Bitcoin can't get to $100 trillion market without anything shifting, they're about to print in the US $1 trillion for the next quarter. The Treasury is announcing that tomorrow, I think. So it's like anyone who thinks $1 trillion is too much money to go into Bitcoin doesn't understand. And you know when that fake ETF tweet came out by Cointelegraph?
Yeah,
Well, the
I know where you're
market,
going with this.
the market in that 30 minutes moved $57 billion. Do you think $57 billion moved into Bitcoin in the space of 30 minutes? Of course it didn't. You're looking at a sub of $1 billion moving into Bitcoin within that 30-minute window with the high frequency trading programs that we got. So Bank of America's bull market multiple, as I like to call it, could actually be bearish. Right, because
Yeah,
if somewhere between 500 million and $1 billion went in and it moved the market cap by 60 billion, like what's going to happen when $1 trillion goes in really quick?
yeah,
Then you factor in the fact that supply on exchanges is collapsing. Then you go into realizing that BlackRock is now here. Then you go into realizing that there's an 80% HODL rate in the bear market. So what happens when the price starts going up? Right. So, yeah, a lot of these things have to come into play, and you got to be a complete moron if you're arrogant enough to go, all of these things are coming into play, and I'm still not going to learn about Bitcoin.
yeah, yeah. That's the $1,000 net worthers, as you call them. Of course, we're not mocking people for not having money. It's
I
just
am.
you are,
I am. I
yeah,
am absolutely, because here's the thing, right? Everyone wants to go on about, oh, Bitcoin's only for the world. Bitcoin shouldn't be for the rich people. Bitcoin shouldn't be for BlackRock. Bitcoin, shut the fuck up. Bitcoin is a monetary network. You know what that means? It's a monetary network, which means anyone who has $1 to put into Bitcoin is as valuable for Bitcoin as anyone else. So if you're sitting there and you got $1,000 of Bitcoin or $1,000 of net worth, and you're complaining that a billionaire and a billionaire institution is $1 trillion institution is coming in, you're the stupid one. They got the capital to put into there, right? You don't. And Bitcoin's a monetary network. It makes zero judgments. The only thing that matters is, do you have the value to put into Bitcoin? That's it. That's what's beautiful about it. It's not like real estate. When I was in real estate, I had to do deals in ways where people wouldn't find out about the deal, because if they did, they had the liquidity to take advantage of it. Right? If I told them about the deal, they could walk in behind my back and take the deal. And so Bitcoin, there's none of that with Bitcoin. So you finally have an asset which has full transparency of information, and you want to complain about the fact that rich people are now coming. No, you're not doing that. Not with me anyway. They can do that with all the other $10 a month DCA gang members, the $1,000 net worthers, the happy hippies, the whoever else, right? The BlackRock bears. They can do that. They can all get together and have that moaning party, but it ain't going to be on my watch, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is a monetary network, which means that, unfortunately, whatever you want to think, rich people need Bitcoin more than poor people, because they actually have the money. But poor people need Bitcoin adoption more than rich people, which is why I think it's also important that we continue working to cause Bitcoin adoption in the economy, because that is actually what will help poor people. If you're poor now and the only thing you're going to afford is 0.05 Bitcoin, guess what? You're going to be poor when Bitcoin's $5 million a coin, because you're going to be poor then by today's standards. So you need to get your shit together and you start creating value to save in Bitcoin and allow that to appreciate. You owning 0.05 Bitcoin and now high-fiving people, telling them that you've done the right thing and you've saved the world, is not it. That ain't gonna work. Maybe I'm the only one that's out here saying that, but that ain't gonna work. You better get your shit together. Better get to work. Better start creating some value in this capitalist economy we have. Thankfully, we have a capitalist economy, and start figuring out how to save that in Bitcoin.
Well, I think we have a a quasi-capitalist economy with the amount of government involvement. But yeah, I fully agree with you. Still, we're not in a socialist world. I really like what you said about how rich people need Bitcoin more than poor people, but poor people need Bitcoin adoption more than rich people. That is a really great way of putting it. I think of Michael Saylor. His company desperately needed Bitcoin. Because they're facing inflation. If you hear Michael Saylor talk about why he bought Bitcoin, it's because they needed it. They needed it for their business. The more economic value someone stewards and controls and has responsibility over, the greater the need for them to have that stability of Bitcoin. But then,
Right.
you think about the rest of the world, you think about people in the global south, South America, Africa, wherever. It's like, you're right. They need Bitcoin adoption more because the more Bitcoin adoption there is, hopefully the more stable food supplies, the more stable energy prices, the more energy, the more calories per capita. So I really like what you said there. I guess I'm still having trouble understanding what you mean with you talked about 0.05 Bitcoin. That's 5 million sats. I still struggle understanding what you mean there, because when
Well,
I
let's
do the
say
math, if there's, just to give a little more context here, if there's two, if it takes roughly 4% of the adult population demanding 1 million sats, which is a fifth of that 5 million sats, then to me, my view is that, if there's 5 billion adults, 200 trillion sats, you do the math out, that a million sats could be like a serious amount of money if, assuming we have that demand from people. If 4% the global adult population demands 1 million sats, there's no more Bitcoin. So I guess if you could elaborate for me, just because I don't quite follow, why is 5 million sats still poor in the future by today's standards?
Because if anyone thinks having $1 million net worth in 2023 is rich, you don't understand how money works, right? $1 million in 2023 is not the same as it was in 1979. In 1979, having $1 million was fantastic. Now, based on every calculation study I've read, you need about $10 million to maintain the same quality of lifestyle as you did in 1979. So anyone thinks who they're going to buy a bunch of sats, go to Bitcoin conferences, high five with the happy hippies, and buy shit pieces of art and give away their Bitcoin instead of holding it, you don't understand. Michael Saylor ain't doing that, is he? Michael Saylor's not out here giving away his Bitcoin for shit pieces of art. What he's doing is holding it as hard as he can because he understands what Bitcoin is. All I'm saying is that if you think that you're going to buy a future value. And by the way, in your calculation there, you're assuming that Bitcoin gets to $100 million per Bitcoin price. Right? I'm talking about $10 million.
Yeah, correct.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about 10 million, a $10 million Bitcoin price, which everyone thinks is crazy right now. And everyone thinks that, they're going to have 5 million sats and be super rich and to save the world and this, that, and the other. You're delusional. Build a business, get a job, create some value. If you want your last name to mean anything, get some damn Bitcoin. And until you do that, all of the tweeting and all the, I'm not going to give a shit who anyone is in 20 years, right? I don't care. I know I say this on my YouTube all the time. I'm here for a short period of time because there's only a short window of opportunity for people to actually get to one Bitcoin, which is my main message. People need to do everything they can to get to one Bitcoin if they want to be relevant. Otherwise, you'll just be exactly the same as right now, where you'll need to protest with a group that has assets in order to get your opinion inflicted on the world. Unfortunately, that's just how the world works. The people with the resources are the ones whose opinions get inflicted on the world. And having 5 million sats ain't going to change shit.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah, I suppose that I think both of us are right to a certain degree. I think 5 million sats is a lot of money, but I'm probably talking a far longer timeline than what you're talking about. You're talking about a much shorter timeline here. So what is that benchmark that if it's not 5 million, 10 million sats, it's that one coin level? That sounds like that's
Get to
it.
one Bitcoin.
Got it.
I don't want to confuse anyone. I will always drum that, like, get to one Bitcoin or die trying.
I'm glad that you're taking the time to learn about Bitcoin, learn about Bitcoin's potential future value, both in terms of political currency units and on society as a whole. And I'm really glad that you're taking the effort to study and educate yourself about Bitcoin. However, I must make this message incredibly clear. If you are learning about Bitcoin, you must begin also learning about self-custody and taking possession of your own keys. This is really, really important. You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want, talking about how Bitcoin is going to skyrocket in fiat price and how the number is going to go up. You can talk about that all you want. You can daydream about this kind of vertical spike action for Bitcoin. You can daydream about this all you want. But my encouragement to you is that this is not a meme. This is not something to be taken lightly. We can think that this is a good thing, and it is a good thing ultimately for Bitcoin's long-term adoption, but this is real. Okay, this really happens in countries. It may not happen in your country for some time. It may happen in a stair-step fashion, but this is not a meme. This is not a joke. And so, therefore, you need to take self-custody really, really seriously. Okay. I work full time in self-custody solutions for people. I help people set up their multi-sig vaults. I help people set up their estate plans. I help people with a collaborative custody partnership and collaborative custody models. Okay. This is a chart of the amount of interest we have at the Bitcoin Advisor, the company I work at. Okay. This is not me personally. This is the whole company. We've been in business 7 years. Not a single client of ours has ever lost a single sat. Okay. And we have a good number of clients. And this is our demand. My point in showing you this chart, my point in showing you this message right now is that it is increasingly urgent, increasingly important that you begin taking self-custody very seriously. I'm telling you, I'm on the inside of this all day, every day, 6 days a week, and demand for self-custody is skyrocketing. Okay. The kinds of clients we have, the number of clients we have, the conviction in the clients we have, it is only going up. Okay. And people are booking meetings with me weeks, okay, in advance. In some cases, over a month in advance. And we are in bear market. Okay. This chart right here is from October 2023. Okay, like incredible low interest globally in Bitcoin, and our demand is still skyrocketing, it's still spiking. And my encouragement is that if we have a bull run, if we have parabolic spikes such as this, where Bitcoin goes rapidly upwards in terms of price, if we have these periods of time, okay, transaction fees are going to spike. Okay, exchanges are going to halt withdrawals. Okay, people are going to panic. They're going to smash by any price. Okay, it's going to be increasingly difficult to have any time with people to help you in your self-custody setups. So first and foremost, whatever you do, whether you work with me at the Bitcoin Advisor, whether you go somewhere else, whether you figure it out on your own, whatever the case, please start figuring out self-custody. Hot wallets, cold wallets, cold wallets, single sig, multi-sig, whatever you do, just start figuring it out now, because I'm increasingly alarmed by the number of Bitcoiners that do not have self-custody. So please, if you have any Bitcoin self-custody, but especially if you have a large amount of Bitcoin in self-custody, please start taking this stuff seriously, because it's only going to be increasingly important in the future. And so, if you like to work with me, if you like to hear my opinions, perspectives, and ideas on this topic, you can find me at the Bitcoin Advisor. This is precisely why I work at the Bitcoin Advisor, because I believe this is such an important topic here. Okay. You can find me there. You can have expert guidance on how to self-custody Bitcoin, to buy, secure, and store it properly for the long term. We can have tailored strategies for you, what your long-term vision is, both for yourself, your own individual future, your retirement, and for your future generations as well. Again, multi-sig vaults, estate plans, all these things for you. Okay. You can just book a free meeting with me here, and the link down below in the description. Again, the first consultation is completely free, where we can talk about your priorities and see if there's a value add both for you and for the Bitcoin Advisor as well. And again, our goal is to help you have generational wealth for you and your loved ones and your children without losing sleep. Okay. And that's why not only do you get a free initial consultation, but you have dozens and dozens of pages of education about multi-sig, self-custody, how to store your Bitcoin properly, things to avoid, things to pursue. Okay. Again, dozens and dozens of pages of free education for you to be learning about this increasingly important, increasingly urgent topic. Okay. And then you can learn further about the Bitcoin Advisor, and why we provide much more value for half the cost of our competitors. You can learn about all this and more in that link in the description, where you can book a free consultation with me at the Bitcoin Advisor. So again, whatever you do, whether you work with me at the Bitcoin Advisor or you try to figure out on your own, please just start taking action now. Because in a couple of years, higher and higher net worth people are going to be entering the space and demanding self-custody. Okay, more and more companies, more and more charities, more and more pension funds, more and more churches, all these things, all these groups of people, all these entities are going to be coming into Bitcoin very quickly, and they'll be willing to pay the transaction fees. They'll be willing to pay whatever fiat price and get for their sats. They'll be willing to do the self-custody as fast as possible. And so my encouragement to you, again, I'm glad you're enjoying these videos. I really appreciate you subscribing and commenting and being a part of these videos and increasing your Bitcoin education. But please, please, please do not stop at the end of this video. Immediately after you watch the end of this video, please start taking your self-custody seriously, whether that's with me at the Bitcoin Advisor, again, link in the description, or it's on your own. Whatever the case, please just do it. Thank you.